Hey, third and fourth grade. Your assignment for this week is on one of my most favorite composers, Clara Schumann. Her maiden name, that's the name she had before she was married, was Clara Wieck. Okay. She was super cool, especially because what we know about the time when she was living, right? We knew women weren't super able to be independent, but she was like a powerhouse human being. So you're going to have story time with Miss PE. Yay! And I'm going to read to you this awesome little book that I found on my laptop, see? But you'll get the dramatic reading from me. So here we go. When Clara Wieck was a little girl, a student of her father's used to tease her with scary stories. He would wait till the room got dark, then dress up as a ghost, making shapes in the dim light. The man was Robert Schumann, and when Clara grew up, she married him. They were like 11, 12 years apart, I think, so not, crazy age difference, but pretty far apart. Robert became a brilliant composer, but seeing Clara play at age 9 was what gave him the idea of starting a career in music and studying with her father, one of the leading piano teachers in Germany. Clara's childhood was most unusual. She could hardly talk and was at first thought to be a deaf mute. That means you can't hear or speak. Her father, her parents were divorced, started giving her piano lessons partly to reassure himself that she could hear. She began speaking normally at age 8, when she was already on her way to becoming a world-famous pianist. Her concerts were so popular that police had to be called in to control the crowds. Fancy desserts were named after her. Poets wrote poems about her. She was nervous before a concert and rarely satisfied with her performance, and often depressed afterwards. And I can really relate to that because I'm never satisfied with how I play when I play by myself, even in class with you guys sometimes. But she found touring exhilarating and made dozens of tours outside Germany. In every town, she wore a different white dress each night. Are you seeing why I like this woman? Chopin, another composer, called her the only woman in Germany who can play my music, and Robert wrote all of his music with her in mind. Your eyes, you romantic girl, he once wrote, follow me everywhere, and I often think one cannot make such music without a bride. He used some of her melodies, and she premiered his music, which was considered weird all over Europe. She was the famous one during her marriage. She was known as the Queen of the Piano, while he was known as Clara Wieck's husband. She was a much better pianist than he was, and could earn more in 3 weeks than he could in a year. Clara Schumann composed some 23 piano works, and most of her concerts included at least one work of her own. And this was a big deal back in the time because women weren't really allowed to write music. And oftentimes, if women did write music, they had to give it to a male performer to premiere. And many times these men would take credit for their work. So it's really cool that she was able to do this. But at the age of 20, she wrote, I once thought that I possessed a creative talent, but I have given up that idea. A woman must not desire to be a composer. Not one has done it, and why should I expect to? I imagine because she was probably discouraged by people of the time. After she was married, she kept performing, but stopped composing. Unable to practice whenever Robert was working, she practiced at night when he went out. There is not even one little hour in the whole day for myself, she said. Besides teaching piano and organizing all the details of her concert tours, she supervised a household of 3 servants, spent several hours a day writing letters, nursed Robert through several breakdowns. He dealt with a pretty severe depression, so oftentimes, and he also injured himself because he played piano too much, so he actually had to stop performing at one point in his life because he had injured his shoulder. And that was a really, really tough time for him. So she was there for him through that. And she took care of her children. She had 8 children within 16 years. She attributed her energy to the long walks she took each day. Clara knew everybody. Composers like Franz Liszt, Richard Wagner, and Felix Mendelssohn came to dinner. These were really big dudes at the time. We'll talk about them at some point. Her best friend was Johannes Brahms, 14 years her junior. If you've ever heard the song that goes, it's a lullaby, la la la, la la la, la la la, la la la. That's Brahms, okay? And it turns out he was actually desperately in love with Clara, even though she was married to his friend Robert Schumann. Anyway, by rights, Brahms wrote, I should have to inscribe all my best melodies really by Clara Schumann, because she really inspired his music. She was left a widow at 37 when Robert died. To support her family, she turned to performing full-time. She had a longer career than any man of the time, 60 years, and a larger repertoire. That means all the pieces she could play. Only arthritis stopped her from performing. As she died at age 77, she asked her grandson to play Robert's music for her. It was the last music she ever heard. So the other thing that they'll talk a little bit about in the video that I attached, but she really kind of set the standard for how we perform today, right? So those of you who take music lessons or piano lessons, sometimes your teacher might say, can you memorize this piece? And that comes because Clara memorized every song that she ever performed. So she played it from her brain. Kind of like when we practice for the concert and we first use lyrics and stuff, but then we learn to sing it without looking at the words. So she was a really influential composer, some really lovely music. And I hope you enjoyed the songs I attached. Don't worry, they're very short. They're a little mushy, but I think you guys will like it. I'm just sad I can't play them for you in person, so I hope you enjoy. Bye.